When we say extended production tasks aim to elicit responses that will be longer than a sentence or utterance. Unlike limited productions or selected responses tasks, which are item-based, extended production tasks are prompt-based. They can be either independent or passage-based. Good day everyone, this is Arnel Salme. For today's lesson, we are going to talk about designing assessment tasks, extended production. So for today's lesson, we are going to talk about information gap tasks, role-play or simulation tasks, extended production tasks with written responses, and the last one is extended production tasks with spoken responses. But first, let's talk about information gap tasks. So when we say information gap tasks, presents the input in terms of incomplete informations. An information gap activity is an activity where learners are missing the information they need to complete a task and need to talk to each other to find it. For example, learner A has a biography of famous person with all the place names missing, whilst learner B has the same text with all dates missing. Together they can complete the text by asking each other questions. In the classroom, information gap activities are useful for various reasons. They provide opportunity for extended speaking practice. They present real communication, motivation can be high, and they require sub-skills such as clarifying meaning and rephrasing. Typical types of information gap activities you might find include describe and draw, spot the different, jigsaw readings and listening, and split dictations. Let's move on to the role-play and simulation tasks. When we say role-play or simulation tasks, the input present text takers with a language or non-language prompt that asks them to take and stimulate situation to solve a problem, make decisions, or perform some transactions collaboratively. So, play is a powerful learning approach. So in higher education, experimental learning strategies such as roleplay and simulation allow students to take different personas and interact within diverse learning settings. So with the roleplay, the student assume different characteristics and act out scenarios. Typically without any scripts, these spontaneously scenarios can be situated in reality or ones they are unfamiliar with. The students must use creativity and critical thinking to further get into their role. So depending on the text or depending on the setup, roleplay may take days to or even an entire semester to complete. So when we say simulation, it's a form of roleplay, but more constructed. In simulations, scenarios are much more complex and more situated in real life. Also, students may assume other characters or play themselves. There might be more formal games rules to follow and decisions to make. Once the scenario is created by the instructor, the simulation typically takes a day to complete. So roleplay and simulation significantly contribute to students' learning as they are able to consider multiple perspectives within a challenging environment. Instructors are able to cover more complex course topics in a way that moves students from passive to active learners as they attempt to problem solving within this next context. So what is the difference between simulation and roleplay? Just like what I said a while ago, simulation is when an individual acts exactly or imitate a role in a roleplay. A role play is when an individual portrays a role play in a play. They are given a situation plus a task or problem but are not acting as themselves but as though they are someone else. So let's move on to the extended production task with written responses. When we say written responses, they are ranged in a length from several sentences to an entire essay, even to full-length research papers. One example of written task format is recall task. In recall task, students are allowed to read or listen to passage several times and even take notes before writing a detailed summary. That's why they involve both language ability and memory. So another example of written task format is written summaries. As the name suggests, they are the summaries of reading or listening passages. The difference between recall tasks and written summaries is that the test takers can refer to passage or their notes while writing. Don't depend on the writer's memory. They are more suitable curriculum-related assessment purposes. Recall tasks yield detailed responses, whereas written summaries yield main ideas. Another example of written format is dictation. It integrates with listening ability with writing ability. It has been viewed as an indicator of language proficiency since it has been used to assess knowledge of lexical bundles and particular syntactic feature. Even native speakers may have difficulty to keep up with the past speech, so it is important to consider the extent to which students will need to extra time to write. Let's move on to the extended production task with spoken responses. The most typical extended production speaking task is perhaps the interview. Interviews can be highly scripted with specific prompts which must be asked. Follow-up questions may not be allowed or may be required. It can be free-formed with no set list of prompts. They can be open-ended, which is necessary to specify what sort of things, topics, functions, structures will be discussed or elicited. It is thought that interviews are not authentic and does not reflect the normal conversation in real life or in real world with spoken interactions, like person A does not ask questions and person B answered them. This tendency has led to interest and alternative speaking assessment. So another speaking task format is role-play tasks. Just like what I've said a while ago, they provide assessing learners' ability to engage various types of speech, acts, or to perform a lot of language functions than to discuss in a group. So roles and background information are given on ruler cards. Like ruler plays are really good to display speaking ability. Another speaking task format is monologue. In monologue, responses are recorded. The students are expected to respond to prompts without singing them before. Narrating a story told by series of features. Describing a picture, interpreting graphs are the example of monologue. Another speaking task format is reading aloud. It is the best to test pronunciation ability, including stress, rhythm, intonation, connected speech, and reading fluency. So that's the end of my report. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you learned something today. Have a good day ahead of you.